Sir, could you be my daddy for just one day? The question was quiet, but it sliced through the freezing air. Ethan Cole stopped outside the Air Café, shoes scraping salted pavement, and turned like he'd imagined the sound. A little girl, maybe 6, stood in the doorway's glow. 2 tight braids, one ribbon slipping loose, a worn red backpack hung crooked on her shoulder. Fuzzy blue gloves didn't match, but it was her eyes, wide brown, wet with hope. Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry." "What did you say?" She stepped closer, breath fogging. "Tomorrow is Daddy Day at school. Everyone brings their dad. I don't have one. I saw you and thought, maybe you could pretend, just one day." The words landed like a fist through his coat. Ethan looked away, trying to breathe. Her backpack color, too familiar. The frayed strap, exactly where Noah used to tear his. The mismatched gloves, Noah's favorite trick, losing one and calling it astronaut style. Then she whispered, almost like a spell, "You look like a dad who knows how to fix broken things." Ethan's chest clenched. That was what Noah said whenever a toy snapped or a knee bled. Before the accident, before the house went silent, the moment felt too big for a sidewalk. Like the city paused to listen. If you've ever had a single sentence stop you cold, this was his. Ethan stared at her small hand, her steady bravery, and felt something inside him crack open. His throat tightened. I'm sorry," he started, backing up on instinct. "I don't think I—" Her face changed instantly, hope dimming, like a light switched off. She lowered her chin, lips trembling, trying not to fall apart. "Okay," she whispered. "I just thought maybe—" She turned away without a scene, boots crunching soft snow. It wasn't loud sadness. It was the kind that crawls under your ribs and stays there. Ethan's voice rose before he could stop it. "Wait!" She froze. Ethan took 2 quick strides. "What's your name?" The girl sniffed, still turned half away. "Maya," she said. "Maya Hart." In the cafe window, an older woman watched like she'd seen fate before. The older woman sipped coffee, eyes sharp and gentle. "That child's got a light," she murmured, not quite to Ethan, not quite to herself. Ethan glanced between her and the girl. Then a woman hurried over, coat too thin, hair in a messy bun. "Maya, honey, we talked about asking strangers," the woman said, breathless. She faced Ethan, cheeks red from cold and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, sir. She's been dreaming about this for weeks. I didn't think she'd actually do it." "I'm Tessa Hart," she added quickly. Ethan recognized her. Years back, she'd run a library program his company funded. Smart, proud, quiet. Now she looked worn down to the bone, a slight limp, red-rimmed eyes, chapped hands from too much work. It wasn't winter doing that to her. It was life. "She didn't mean harm," Tessa said. "We'll go." Ethan looked at Maya, then at his own gloved hands. He was good at signing checks, not showing up. He'd built meetings and boardrooms into a wall against grief. But he pictured tomorrow, a classroom full of fathers and an empty chair beside Maya. His stomach turned. Before his brain could argue, he heard himself say, "I'll do it." Tessa blinked like she misheard. Ethan cleared his throat. "Tomorrow, what time?" Maya lit up so fast it nearly hurt. 8:15, south entrance. I'll wear my sparkly sneakers." Ethan let out a surprised laugh, one he hadn't heard from himself in years. "Sparkly sneakers," he repeated. Tessa hesitated, wary. "Are you sure?" "You don't even know us," Tessa said softly. Ethan's voice steadied. "I know enough." Maya slipped her tiny hand into his gloved one like it belonged there. "You'll be great," she declared. Ethan looked down. You think so? She nodded, fearless. You look like someone who fixes broken things, she said again. This time, Ethan didn't flinch. He just held her hand a beat longer and felt the strange, dangerous thought. Maybe he wasn't done being useful. That night, the city roared outside his penthouse. Inside, it was painfully quiet. Ethan poured a small bourbon and stared through glass at snow drifting over Manhattan like ash. He kept seeing Maya's eyes, hearing that line. He crossed to a closet he never opened, shoved past old coats, and pulled down a dusty box. The lid creaked. Inside, tiny sneakers with worn soles, a crayon drawing of a stick figure family and a single blue glove. Only one. Noah had always lost the other. A tear slid down Ethan's cheek before he could wipe it away. Morning arrived like a dare. Ethan dressed carefully, navy wool coat, fresh scarf, like armor. But his heart felt exposed, raw as wind. At PS 212, Dad stood with daughters, laughing, fumbling with hair ties, gripping pink backpacks. Then Maya spotted him and ran, sparkles flashing. You came, she cried, grabbing his hand like they'd known each other forever. I gave my word, Ethan said, voice softer than usual. Tessa approached slower, coat brushed clean, hair tidier, exhaustion still etched in her eyes. Mr. Cole, she began formally. Call me Ethan, he said. A staff member handed him a sticker. Dad, for a day, guest. He pressed it to his chest and followed Maya into a classroom of tiny chairs and loud posters. The teacher, Miss Delaney, smiled, then studied Ethan with curiosity. Maya, is this your father? Miss Delaney asked gently. Ethan didn't blink. I'm a family friend, he said, ready for judgment. Maya beamed. He's my borrowed dad, she whispered proudly, like she'd invented a title nobody could take away. The morning spun into charming chaos. Maya showed her art folder, introduced classmates, and read aloud a story about a tree that gave everything away. Ethan sat cross-legged, knees protesting, but his chest felt lighter. During snack time, he stepped into the hallway for vending machine coffee. He found Tessa on a bench by the window, staring at gray daylight. You didn't have to stay, she said, guarded. I wanted to, Ethan replied, offering her a cup. Her hands wrapped around the warmth like it was oxygen. Most men would have smiled and left, she murmured. Most men haven't lost what I've lost, Ethan said quietly. Tessa looked up, really looked. A child? He nodded. Noah, 10 years ago, drunk driver. Her breath caught. I'm so sorry. Ethan stared at the floor tiles. I never thought I'd enter a school again. But your daughter, he began. Tessa's mouth twitched into a thin, sad smile. She does that. She sees the empty places and tries to patch them, like it's her job. Ethan watched her profile. Tired lines, but steel underneath. She's lucky, he said. To have you? Tessa laughed without humor. Some days I'm not sure I'm doing any of it right. I work late. I miss bedtime. I fix things with duked tape. Ethan shook his head. You show up. That's more than most. They sat in a silence filled with distant classroom noise. A janitor rolled by with a cart, slowing when he saw Maya through the door window. That little one's special, he said, half smiling. Last week she sat with a boy who was melting down, autism, and she didn't move until he calmed. I've never seen anything like her. Back inside, Maya held up a new drawing. Messy, bright, unmistakably hers. A big man with a wide smile holding hands with a tiny girl in sparkly shoes. Ethan crouched beside her. Is that me? He asked. Maya nodded. Yep, and I gave you the right shoes this time. Ethan laughed, real, unguarded, and ruffled her braids. When the day ended, Maya clung to his hand. "Thank you," she said. "Best day ever." Ethan's voice went rough. "Best day I've had in a long time, too." Tessa watched them, something soft cracking through her caution. The ride to Harlem felt gentle, like the hush after prayer. Maya hummed in the back of Ethan's black SUV, swinging her legs and smiling at him in the rearview mirror. Tessa sat up front, shoulders finally loosening. Ethan parked at a modest building with faded brick and an aging awning. There were flower pots in the windows and toys lined neatly by the stoop, proof of care in a hard place. Tessa unbuckled and hesitated. "Do you want to come up? It's just spaghetti, nothing fancy." Ethan paused, thinking of his usual white tablecloth dinners and empty penthouse silence. Maya's eyes did the begging for her. Ethan nodded once. "Only if I can help with dishes." Tessa smiled, surprised. "Deal." The apartment was small but warm, every corner telling a story. Library books were stacked like treasure. A crooked magnet held drawings on the fridge, and a couch was patched by hand. Maya sprinted to change clothes while Ethan stood near the doorway, absorbing the life in the place. "Sorry it's tight," Tessa said. Ethan shook his head. "It's more home than most penthouses." Dinner was simple: spaghetti, day-old garlic bread, and salad cut by Maya with a dull plastic knife. They ate at a tiny round table meant for two, somehow fitting three. Maya did most of the talking: school, favorite books, a classmate who wore the same socks every day. Tessa mostly watching her child, yes, but also watching Ethan, like she couldn't decide what he meant. After dinner, Maya disappeared and returned with a shoebox and a stack of photos. "I want to show you," she said, climbing onto the couch. "My memory box." Inside were baby pictures, a faded hospital bracelet, a homemade card with a lopsided heart, and tissue-wrapped treasures. Maya unwrapped a tiny wooden airplane with a broken wing. "That was my real dad's," she said quietly. "He made it in high school wood shop." Tessa stiffened, about to interrupt, but Ethan raised a gentle hand. "It's okay," he said, giving Maya permission to speak her truth. "He died when I was a baby," Maya continued. "I don't remember him, but Mom says he loved me a lot." She looked up at Ethan. "Do you think you can love someone you never really knew?" Ethan's throat tightened. He chose his words carefully, like handling glass. "Sometimes the heart remembers what the mind can't," Ethan said softly. Maya grinned and leaned into his side like that answer built a bridge. Later, after she fell asleep, Ethan and Tessa cleared the table. He washed, she dried, moving in a rhythm that felt unfamiliar and strangely right. "I hope she didn't overwhelm you," Tessa whispered. Ethan dried his hands. "She's remarkable," he said, "and so are you." Tessa shook her head, tired honesty spilling out. "I'm just surviving. Rent, jobs, praying she doesn't notice when I skip dinner." Ethan's eyes sharpened with concern. "She notices," he said, "but she doesn't see failure. She sees love." Tessa leaned back against the counter, arms folded. "Why did you say yes?" Ethan met her gaze. Steady. "Because she reminded me of someone, and because I needed to remember I can still do good in this world." Tessa held that look a moment, then nodded like she understood more than she wanted to. Ethan glanced toward Maya's cracked-open bedroom door, nightlight glowing. It wasn't only for her, he admitted. When he prepared to leave, Maya appeared in pajamas, eyes sleepy but determined. "Wait," she said, holding something behind her back. She pressed the wooden airplane into his palm. Keep it for a little while, so you don't forget me." Ethan knelt, overwhelmed. "Are you sure?" Maya nodded firmly. "You fixed something today, not the wing. Here." She tapped her chest. Ethan's voice went hoarse. "Thank you, Maya." Snow drifted down as he stepped outside, slow and soft. He stared at the plane's broken wing under moonlight and felt a terrifying thought bloom. The promise had already outgrown its deadline. Sunday came with a weak, pale sun over the skyline. Ethan woke early. The airplane sat on his nightstand like a witness. He traced the worn edge, remembering Noah's red-painted plane, the smell of glue, the pride in his boy's grin. He hadn't slept much, but he felt more awake than he had in months. Around mid-morning, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Tessa. Hi, hope this isn't intrusive. Maya's asking if you're busy today. She wants to show you something, no pressure." Ethan stared, then typed back, "I'd love to." They met at the Harlem Public Library. Maya was in the children's corner, reading aloud to a younger boy. Her voice was animated and warm, like she was building a safe world with syllables. It reminded Ethan of Noah reading to their old beagle, pretending the dog understood every chapter. Tessa appeared carrying 2 books. She looked slightly more rested, but responsibility still clung to her like a heavy coat. "She practically lives here," Tessa said with a small smile. Ethan watched Maya give the little boy a high five. "She's a natural storyteller," he replied. "That's a gift." Tessa nodded. "It's how she makes the world less lonely." They sat on a bench near the window, the library noise soft around them. "Thank you for yesterday," Tessa said. "It meant more than you know." Ethan nodded, eyes on Maya. "I meant it when I said it wasn't just for her. I've been walking around with a closed heart for a long time." Tessa's expression gentled. "What happened to Noah?" she asked carefully. Ethan swallowed. "I don't want to dump it on you." "You don't have to," she said, voice steady. "But I want to understand." He exhaled. "There's a hole nothing really fills." His gaze tracked Maya laughing. "But yesterday, I remembered what it felt like to matter to someone small and innocent. That doesn't vanish. It just gets buried." Tessa blinked fast, fighting tears. "You mattered to her the moment you said yes," she said. "That's not small." Maya ran up holding a flyer. "There's a winter fair at the park. Can we go?" Tessa hesitated. Time, money, exhaustion. Then Ethan smiled like the decision was easy. "We can make it work." The fair at Marcus Garvey Park was modest. A neighborhood fundraiser with craft booths, pretzels, hot cocoa, and a carousel that creaked but kept spinning. Maya squealed at everything. Ethan bought her a knit hat with cat ears. She jammed it on immediately and declared herself Mayor of Winter. Tessa watched, cocoa steaming in her hands. "You're good with her," Tessa said when Ethan sat beside her. "I had practice," he replied. "But it's been a long time." He glanced at her profile. "Do you ever wish you could start over?" Tessa's answer came quietly. "Every day." Ethan nodded. "Me too. Some nights I stare at my ceiling and grieve the life I thought I'd have," Tessa admitted. Then I hear her breathing and think maybe it's not a failure, just a different kind of story. Without thinking, Ethan laid his hand over hers on the bench. "It's a good story," he said. "It just needs a few chapters rewritten." Tessa looked down at their hands, then up at him, guarded, startled, but open. "You're dangerous, Ethan Cole," she murmured. He gave a small, sad chuckle. "I used to be dangerous only to myself." That evening, Maya fell asleep in Ethan's arms on the walk home. head tucked against his coat like she belonged there. Tessa unlocked the apartment and held the door as Ethan carried Maya inside. He laid her down carefully, pulling the blanket up with a tenderness that surprised him. Tessa stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart loud. "Do you want to stay for tea?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." They sat at the tiny table, mugs chipped, tea steaming, snow drifting outside like the world was trying to forgive itself. Silence settled, not awkward, just gentle. Tessa's eyes softened. What happens when one day turns into more? Ethan met her gaze. "Then we stop pretending," he said. The truth hung between them, steady and frightening. In that kitchen, Ethan realized he wasn't visiting a life. He was being invited into one he'd stopped believing he deserved. The next week formed a fragile rhythm. He caught himself checking his phone just to reread Tessa's practical messages that somehow carried warmth. He picked Maya up from school twice and helped with a science project made of straws and tape. Tessa insisted it was temporary. "I don't want to impose," she said, but each shared dinner tightened a tether Ethan hadn't expected. Then the whispers started. An older woman at the grocery store smirked. "So, you're the new father?" Ethan brushed it off. Harlem ran on gossip, but it didn't stop at harmless remarks. A photo surfaced, Ethan with Maya at the winter fair, laughing as she sat on his shoulders in her cat ear hat. It was innocent, sweet, but it appeared online with a headline that made Ethan's stomach knot, "Powerful CEO's secret family." In his world, perception wasn't a side issue. It was a weapon. He stared at the screen in his office, jaw tight, hand clenched around the mouse. He wasn't ashamed of Maya or Tessa, never that. He was furious that something tender was being twisted into scandal. By the next day, the story reached Tessa. She called between his meetings, voice sharp with panic. "Ethan, we need to talk." He canceled his next appointment and drove to the library. Tessa waited outside, coat pulled tight, phone in a white knuckle grip. "Have you seen this?" she demanded, holding up the headline. "I have," Ethan said quietly. Tessa's voice cracked. "They're dragging my name too, saying I'm using you, saying I planted Maya to get money." "That's insane," Ethan snapped. Tessa shook her head, fear overriding logic. "It doesn't matter if it's insane. It matters if people believe it." She swallowed hard. "My boss saw it, Harold Pierce, the board trustee." Ethan's tone darkened. "The one who loves control?" Tessa nodded. "He's threatening to suspend me, says the library can't afford scandal." Ethan's breath came slow, controlled. "He's a relic," he muttered. Tessa cut in. "He's powerful, and he's using this." Ethan stepped closer. "For what?" Tessa hesitated, then the word fell out like a stone. "Custody." She looked away. "His wife, Marion Pierce, is Maya's godmother. They've been pressuring me for months. They say I'm not fit." Ethan felt the punch in his gut. "They can't be serious." Tessa's eyes shone with anger and terror. "They have money and connections. They'll frame this like I'm unstable, like I'm dragging my child into a tabloid circus." Ethan lowered his voice. "You've done everything right, Tessa. You're a good mother." She whispered, "Sometimes that's not enough." For the first time, Ethan saw her crack, not collapse, just fracture under too much weight. He reached for her arm, gentle. "Let me help." She pulled back fast. "That's exactly what they want," she said, fierce. "They want proof that I'm leaning on a man that I can't stand alone." Ethan's eyes hardened. "This isn't pride. It's Maya." Tessa nodded, pained. which is why you have to step away." The sentence cut deeper than she meant. "Not dinner, not pickups, not this," she said, gesturing between them. "At least until it dies down." Ethan stared, silent, swallowing the urge to argue. Finally, he nodded once. "If that's what you need." Tessa's voice softened. "I just need to keep her safe." She turned and walked back inside, shoulders stiff. Ethan watched her go, a sinking inevitability settling in his chest. Some people reject love because love makes them vulnerable. He sat in his car afterward, hands on the wheel, city streaming past like a river that didn't care. That night in his penthouse, he took the wooden airplane from the shelf and turned it in his hands. He remembered Maya asleep on his shoulder, the pride when he nailed the bedtime story voices, the way Tessa's face loosened for the first time in years. He pictured her standing alone in the cold, bracing for a storm she didn't deserve. Ethan understood then. Walking away wasn't the end. It was the first real test, and he wasn't going to let them face it alone, not if he had anything to say about it. Days later, Tessa sat in the family court lobby under buzzing fluorescent lights, hands clasped tight. Her public defender flipped through papers, exhausted. Across the room, Marion Pierce sat upright in a tailored gray coat, while Harold leaned close, whispering like a campaign manager. Maya sat between Tessa and the attorney, coloring quietly, mercifully unaware. Tessa's stomach churned. Harold caught her eye and offered a thin, smug nod. The petition challenging Tessa's guardianship had been filed 2 days earlier. Marion claimed concern, citing finances, instability, and, disgustingly, the inappropriate public association with a high-profile executive. Tessa's lawyer leaned in. "We'll push for a delay. They need evidence." Tessa nodded, though her body felt frozen. The courtroom door opened. "Case of Pierce versus Hart," the bailiff called. Tessa stood, heart hammering. Inside, the judge, a middle-aged black woman with eyes that had seen families break and rebuild, reviewed the file with a practiced stillness. "Ms. Hart," she said, "you contest temporary guardianship?" "Yes, Your Honor," Tessa answered, voice firm. Harold stood, Marion staying seated like a saint in a painting. "Your Honor, we seek temporary oversight," Harold said smoothly, "to protect the child from media exploitation and emotional instability." Tessa's hands clenched. The judge's gaze sharpened. "And placing the child in your home accomplishes that?" Harold smiled. "We offer stability and resources Ms. Hart cannot match." Before Tessa could respond, the back door creaked. Heads turned. Ethan Cole walked in, not in a suit, not flanked by attorneys. Just a dark sweater, winter coat, and a thick file in his hand. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" Ethan stepped forward. "Ethan Cole, Your Honor. I have a statement relevant to this hearing." Harold scoffed. "This is irregular." The judge didn't flinch. "I'll allow it." Tessa stared, stunned, as Ethan approached and set the file on the clerk's desk with careful calm. "Inside is evidence that Mr. and Mrs. Pierce orchestrated a smear campaign," Ethan said evenly, "including false tips and payments to a local blogger to publish a fabricated story about me and Ms. Hart." The judge looked up sharply. "Proof?" Ethan nodded. "Emails, bank transfers, and a signed affidavit from the blogger. He came forward after I confronted him with legal action." Color drained from Harold's face. Marion's posture tightened. Tessa felt something hot behind her eyes, not just relief, but awe. Ethan hadn't asked for permission to protect them. He just did it. Ethan continued, voice controlled but edged with conviction. "Ms. Hart has never used me. She has never exploited her daughter. I've been present because I chose to be, because they welcomed me." He glanced at Maya, then back to the bench. "And because Maya deserves love around her, not adults treating her like a prize." Harold's mouth opened, then shut, scrambling for footing. The judge's pen paused over the file, eyes narrowing as she scanned the first pages. Tessa's lawyer sat straighter, suddenly alert. Tessa looked at Ethan like she didn't know how to breathe. He stood there without swagger, just steady, like a man finally using power for something clean. The courtroom air shifted. Whispering stopped. Even the bailiff seemed to lean in. Ethan's file sat between truth and lies like a loaded weight. Marion's concern now looked like strategy. Harold's polished voice now sounded thin. Tessa's hands unclenched for the first time all morning, because someone had chosen to stand beside her when it mattered most. The judge lifted her gaze fully to Harold and Marion, expression hardening. "If these documents are authentic," she said, "this court will take a very dim view of manipulation." Harold tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. "You will not interrupt. Miss Hart's alleged instability is not the issue if you manufactured the instability." Ethan exhaled quietly, not triumphant, just resolved. Tessa's eyes shimmered as she stared at him, realizing he'd risked his reputation to protect her child. Harold's smugness cracked into panic. The judge flipped to the affidavit, reading with slow precision. The courtroom, moments ago, tilted against Tessa, now steadied, because lies don't stand well under light. Ethan's voice caught just once when he said her name. "Maya deserves a life where adults don't weaponize love." He didn't glare, he didn't shout, he just told the truth like a vow. And in that instant, Tessa understood this wasn't a borrowed day anymore. This was someone choosing them on purpose. The room went so quiet it almost hummed. The judge leaned back slowly. "I'll review this evidence thoroughly before making any decision. Until then, full custody stays with Miss Hart." The gavel cracked. Harold whipped toward Marion, whispering urgently as their polished image finally splintered. Ethan turned to Tessa, suddenly unsure. "I hope I didn't push too far." Her eyes shone, not with fear, but with gratitude. "You did exactly what needed doing." Maya bounded over, the bailiff trailing, pockets full of sticker sheets and crumpled backing paper. "Are we going home now?" Maya asked, tugging Tessa's sleeve. Tessa knelt, fingers sliding gently through her daughter's curls. "Yeah, baby, we're going home." As they walked away, Harold called, "This isn't over." Tessa didn't look back. "Maybe not, but it's not yours to finish." Outside, the cold slapped their faces awake. Ethan walked beside them, giving space, but staying close. At the corner, Tessa stopped. "Why did you do all that?" she asked quietly. "Because nobody should have to go to war alone." Ethan answered without hesitation. Tessa nodded once, decision forming. After a beat, she added, "Come for dinner tonight." Ethan blinked. "You sure?" "I'm sure of very little lately," she said, mouth twisting into a tired smile. "But that? Yes." Maya skipped ahead, humming, and Ethan knew the battle had just started, except now. They were a team. A week passed after the courtroom showdown. On the surface, life looked calmer. Tessa returned to the library. The hearing was postponed. The smear machine stalled once Ethan's attorneys fired off cease and desist letters. But beneath that hush, something tense crouched like a storm hugging the horizon. One evening, Tessa stood alone at the sink, rinsing plates that still held traces of sauce. Maya worked through homework in her room, singing softly about planets and stars. Ethan had stayed for dinner, helped with fractions, made them laugh, and then left, leaving a strange, aching stillness. Tessa's gratitude for Ethan felt too big to say out loud, yet tangled with it was fear, not of him, but of who she was becoming with him around. Softer, hopeful, leaning. Those were luxuries she'd denied herself for years just to stay standing. The doorbell jolted her. She dried her hands on a dish towel and opened the door. A courier stood there with a plain envelope. She signed, thanked him, closed the door. Her name was typed neatly across the front. No return address, just stark black letters. Inside was a single photo. Maya on Ethan's shoulders at the fair, both smiling, joy bursting out of the frame. Behind it, a typed note. You should watch who you let near your daughter. Some shadows wear tailored suits. Tessa's breath hitched hard. The paper slipped from her fingers onto the floor. The room swayed for a second. It wasn't a direct threat, but the meaning was obvious. Someone was still watching, still trying to control her life. This was psychological warfare, delivered in glossy ink and careful spacing. She locked the deadbolt, slid the chain, yanked the blinds closed. Sitting down, she tried steadying her shaking hands. She knew exactly whose fingerprints were on this, figuratively, if not literally, Harold, Marion, or both. Names didn't matter. The message was loud enough. Tessa barely slept. The next morning, walking Maya to school, she scanned every parked car twice, clocked every stranger's face. When Ethan's name lit up her phone, she let it ring out. She told herself it was safer. By the third day, he came to find her. He showed up at the library circulation desk, where Tessa scanned barcodes in a faded cardigan, hair pulled back tight, eyes bruised by insomnia. "Hey," he said softly. She flinched, then forced a quick smile. "Hi." "You all right? I've been calling," he said, concern breaking through. She hesitated, then gestured toward the tiny break room. Inside, she shut the door and faced him, arms crossed like armor. "I got a threat," she said, barely above a whisper. Ethan went rigid. "What kind?" She pulled the photo and note from her bag with unsteady hands. Ethan read it, jaw hardening, eyes going cold. "I'll take care of this," he said immediately. "No," she snapped, sharper than intended. "You don't get to swoop in again, not this time." Hurt flickered across his face, mixing with frustration and something dangerously close to heartbreak. "I'm trying to protect you," Ethan said. "I know," she answered, voice softening. "But you can't keep being our rescuer. That's not sustainable, and it's not safe. For you, for Maya, for any of us. You're painting a bigger target on our backs." He inhaled slowly. "So what are you saying?" Tessa swallowed hard. "I'm saying I need you to step back." His brow furrowed deeply. "Tessa, I can't watch them weaponize you and just do nothing." "If you stay," she whispered, "they'll twist every part of this into something filthy again." "And if I disappear?" he asked. "What happens to us?" Tessa looked away, eyes swimming. "She's tough. She'll forget eventually." Ethan shook his head. "She won't. Neither will I." Tessa wiped at a tear, annoyed at herself. "Please, Ethan, give me room. Let me handle this fight alone." He stood still, words trapped behind clenched teeth. After a long beat, he nodded once. "If that's what you want." She didn't trust herself to answer. He left without another word. That night, Maya noticed the emptiness. "Is Mr. Ethan coming tomorrow?" she asked quietly. Tessa hesitated. "No, sweetheart, not for a little while." Maya dropped her gaze to the drawing she was finishing, 3 figures holding hands. "Did he stop loving us?" "No," Tessa said, pulling her close. "He's just being careful. Maya whispered, "I miss him already." "Me too," Tessa breathed. Across town, Ethan sat alone in his darkened office. The city glittered beyond the glass like another universe. The wooden airplane lay on his desk, where he'd placed it after court. His fingers hovered over it, then retreated. Doing the right thing felt like punishment. How do you protect someone who believes they must carry everything alone? How do you step back when every instinct screams to stay? Winter tightened its grip. Days shrank. Snow stuck to gutters like abandoned promises. The silence between them became its own kind of battlefield. The distance stretched longer than Tessa expected. It was exactly what she demanded, but not what she wanted. Each evening, Maya asked a little less. "Is he coming?" Turned into, "He's probably busy." Then quiet acceptance that hurt far more than questions ever had. One night, Tessa sat at the kitchen table, drinking tea that had gone cold. She stared at the crooked magnet on the fridge. The drawing beneath it, Maya, Tessa, and Ethan holding hands, still hung there. Maya hadn't taken it down. She'd simply stopped pointing at it. The phone rang. Tessa's heart jumped, hoping and afraid at once, but it was the school reminding her of Friday's family reading night. Parents were invited to read aloud. Tessa thanked the teacher, hung up, and felt that familiar sting. Another event where Maya's almost dad would be missing. She thought about calling him. Her thumb hovered over his name before she locked the screen. Instead, she arrived at family reading night determined. Hair neat, shoulders squared, voice steady. She chose the Velveteen Rabbit, sat with Maya in her lap, and started reading for a circle of small faces. When she reached the part where the rabbit asks, "What is real?" her throat tightened. "Real is when someone loves you for a long, long time," she read softly. "Not just to play with, but really loves you. Then you become real." The words cut close. Afterward, as parents gathered coats and sleepy kids, Tessa lingered by the bookshelves. Maya chatted with a friend. Miss Ramirez, the teacher, approached with a gentle smile. "You did beautifully," she said. "Maya's lucky to have you." Tessa forced a half smile. "I'm trying." Miss Ramirez hesitated, then spoke. "She misses him," the teacher said carefully. Tessa's shoulders stiffened. "Who?" "Mr. Ethan," Ms. Ramirez replied. "She mentions him sometimes, not constantly, just enough that we know he mattered." Tessa exhaled like air leaving a balloon. "He mattered to both of us," she admitted quietly, voice thin but honest. Later that week, Maya spiked a fever. Nothing drastic, just one of those childhood bugs that demand soup, cool cloths, and patience. Tessa sat on the bed, wiping her daughter's forehead. Maya mumbled drowsily, "I dreamed he came back. He brought pancakes." Tessa swallowed hard. "That sounds like an amazing dream," Tessa said. Maya's eyelids fluttered. "He still loves us, right?" Tessa brushed damp hair away. "Yeah, baby, he does." After Maya finally slept, Tessa stood alone in the living room, phone in hand, staring at Ethan's name glowing on the screen. Her thumb hovered, then she hit call. The line rang once, twice. "Tessa," he answered, not surprised, just knowing. "Maya's sick," she said. "It's nothing big, she just called for you in her sleep." Silence hummed. "I can come," he said quickly. "No," she answered, then softened. "I just thought you should know," Tessa added quietly. "And I wanted to say I'm sorry. I pushed you away because I was terrified, but I see it now. Maya doesn't need protection from you. She needs you near. Maybe I do too." Ethan's voice was low. "I never really left," he said. "Not up here." Tessa closed her eyes, feeling the truth of that. I know. The next morning, a soft knock sounded at their door. When Tessa opened it, no one was there, just a paper bag waiting on the mat. Inside were 3 small containers: pancakes, sliced strawberries, syrup in its own cup, and a folded note in Ethan's handwriting. Real love doesn't walk away. It waits quietly until the door's unlocked. Tessa sank onto the steps, the bag in her lap, heart pounding a complicated rhythm. She didn't know what the future looked like, but she knew this much: they weren't shattered, they were paused, and the kind of love that mattered could survive the quiet between storms. Inside, Maya stirred. Tessa rose, carrying breakfast and something more, back into their little apartment. A few weeks later, Ethan stood at the base of the courthouse steps again, breath fogging in the gray air. The city hummed below the low sky, restless and indifferent. He adjusted his coat and checked the folders stuffed with transcripts, emails, and one crucial affidavit. Tessa arrived 10 minutes later, Maya's hand clenched tight in hers. The girl wore her red peacoat and the cat-ear hat Ethan had bought at the fair. When she spotted him, she yanked free and ran. "Mr. Ethan!" she cried, barreling into his arms. He scooped her up, hugging her until his chest hurt. "Hey, Starshine," he murmured. "Miss me?" She nodded against his shoulder. "Mom said you sent pancakes." Tessa stepped up, nerves flickering in her eyes. "She insisted on being here," Tessa said quietly. "I'm glad she did," Ethan replied. Tessa studied him. "You really think you're ready for what's coming?" He lifted the folder. They crossed a line. "We're done playing nice." Inside, the hearing opened with routine. Names, dates, recap. Harold and Marion sat with stiff spines, their lawyer sounding smug as he painted Tessa as unstable and reckless. Tessa stared forward, clinging to composure. She'd rehearsed this moment in her head, promising herself no outbursts, no breakdowns, just endurance. Then it was Ethan's turn. He rose slowly. The judge invited him to speak. "I'm not Maya's biological father," he began, "but I have been a father." "I know what it means to love someone more than you love breathing," Ethan continued. "And I know what it means to lose them." The room quieted. "I met Tessa and Maya by chance. I stayed because I recognized something. Fight, love, and a kid who deserved consistency." He handed the judge the folder. "These are emails and transcripts showing Harold and Marion Pierce paid a blogger to manufacture damaging stories about Tessa. There are bank transfers from Marion's account and an affidavit from the blogger, willing to testify." The opposing attorney lurched to his feet. "Your Honor, this is circumstantial." "Sit down, counselor," the judge snapped. She flipped through the pages, her expression darkening. Ethan pressed on. "This isn't concern for a child. It's control. It's retaliation. Miss Hart isn't unfit. She's remarkable." Tessa blinked fast, lips trembling as she stared at the desk. Ethan's voice softened. "If we're talking about presence and real parenting, I'll testify to what I've seen. A little girl thriving because of her mother, reading, laughing, dreaming, and I'll swear under oath that I'll be there for as long as they'll let me." A hush fell over the courtroom. Maya tugged Tessa's sleeve. "Can I say something?" Tessa panicked. "Baby, this isn't—" The judge lifted a hand. "Let the child speak." Maya walked up slowly, boots tapping against the floor, and faced the bench with surprising steadiness. "I want to stay with my mom," Maya said. "She tucks me in, she chases the monsters away. Mr. Ethan makes the best pancakes. He's not my dad, but he listens like one. I love him. I don't want expensive carpets without hugs." The judge's eyes glistened. Harold looked away. Tessa covered her mouth. Maya turned calmly and returned to her seat, as if she'd just answered a reading question. The judge leaned forward. "I've seen enough," she said. "The petition for guardianship is denied and dismissed with prejudice." She turned a hard gaze on the Pierces. "Mr. and Mrs. Pierce, I suggest you re-examine your understanding of family and power. Court adjourned." The gavel dropped. It was done. Tessa didn't move at first, not from shock, but from something deeper. Pure, bone-deep relief. Ethan gently covered her hand. This time, she didn't flinch away. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't owe me thanks," he said. "I just showed up." She held his gaze, something wordless passing between them. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Ethan blocked and steered them toward his SUV. Maya climbed in the back, worn out but content. As Ethan started the engine, Tessa looked over. "You think this is finally over?" "No," he said honestly. "But now the story belongs to us." They pulled away, no longer running from the city's noise but moving through it together. The courtroom victory rang like the last note of a powerful song, lingering, then fading. For a while, life found almost normal shape. Maya returned to school without rumors trailing her. Tessa worked at the library without whispered judgments. Ethan carved more time for dinners, park walks, and bedtime voices. But peace drew its own enemies. It started with subtle shifts. A colleague's coolness, a key meeting rescheduled, a major interview quietly canceled. Finally, Ethan's assistant confessed. "Some investors are uneasy. They say the custody scandal and coverage make you complicated." He nodded outwardly calm, while something coiled inside. At the same time, Tessa battled a quieter war. The library's funding committee, still partly influenced by the Pierces' old allies, dragged out grant approvals. Gossip bubbled that she'd leveraged Ethan to gain attention, that her win hadn't been justice, just influence. None of it was true. All of it stung. One evening, they sat on Ethan's balcony, city lights shimmering through steam rising from their mugs. "They're forcing me out," Tessa said flatly. Ethan turned. "We can fight it." She shook her head. "I'm exhausted, Ethan. Every time we stand back up, someone's waiting to shove us down. You're not doing this alone anymore," he said. She studied him. What if staying together keeps hurting us? What if we're collateral damage in each other's lives? The words landed like a body blow. "You're not hurting me," he said. "You gave me something I thought was gone forever." Tears gathered in her eyes. "You say that now, but what if I cost you everything? Your name, your company?" "I don't care about the company," he snapped, then exhaled, voice shaking. "I built it after I lost Noah and Dana. I stacked money over grief, walls over emptiness. None of it means anything compared to you and Maya," he said. "You're not a distraction. You're the reason I remember I'm still human." Tessa reached across the table, threading her fingers through his. Maybe this isn't about fighting back harder. Maybe it's redefining what winning even looks like. The tension between them thinned into something quieter, reverent. The next day, as if scripted by some cruel universe, Ethan got an unmarked envelope. Inside, a grainy zoomed photo of Maya at a playground taken from a distance. No message, no signature, just proof of watching eyes. He froze. It was a threat disguised as observation. Tessa had to know. He went to her apartment. She stirred a pot of soup while Maya colored nearby. When Maya left to wash her hands, Ethan slid the photo across the counter. Tessa's face drained of color instantly. "They're still watching," she whispered. "They never stopped," Ethan said. She sank into a chair, strength flickering. "What do they want? We already won." "Control," he answered. "They want you scared. They want us believing we're never safe." Tessa stared at the picture. "Maybe we should disappear." "Run?" Ethan asked. "Leave," she clarified. "Start somewhere they can't reach us." The idea frightened and tempted him. "Would you really go?" "For Maya's safety, yes. For my peace, absolutely." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "What about justice?" Tessa gave a sad half-smile. "Sometimes justice is just not being afraid anymore." They sat in weighted silence. Finally, Ethan said, "Let me talk to someone." That night, he drove to a Brooklyn brownstone that felt like a second spine. The door opened before he knocked. His mother, May Cole, stood there, sharp-eyed, warm, older but unbowed. "I heard about court," she said, pulling him into a hug, "and about the mess after." Ethan exhaled against her shoulder. "I don't know what to do." She poured tea like ceremony. "You do," she said. "You're just scared of what it'll cost." He nodded, ashamed. "You already lost once," May said gently. "Don't lose again because you're scared to fight ugly. You know how dirty they'll get. Time to be smarter." Ethan stared at his cup. "Tessa wants to leave." "Do you?" May asked. "I want them safe." "Then make their world safer. Bring the water to the fire." He looked at her, seeing the same unshakable belief she'd carried his whole life. "You always believed in impossible things," he said. She smiled. "I still believe in you." The next morning, Ethan placed 2 calls, one to his legal team, another to an investigative journalist he trusted. If the Pierces liked shadows, fine. Ethan would flood every shadow with light. This time, the boundary wouldn't just be drawn, it'd be carved into stone. The story hit at dawn. Headlines flashed across news sites and morning shows. Charity power, couple exposed in custody smear scheme. Photos of Harold and Marion flashed everywhere, their benevolent reputation shattered. The article laid out everything: emails, transfers, anonymous sources. It didn't just tie them to Tessa's smear campaign. It suggested a pattern of targeting vulnerable single mothers whenever they wanted control. By noon, consequences landed hard and fast. Ethan's phone exploded with calls. The library board suspended Harold indefinitely. Sponsors publicly backed away from Marion's events. But Ethan didn't watch from a penthouse. He sat beside Tessa in court, their hands almost touching. The final custody hearing had been moved up after the revelations. Maya sat in the front row with a school counselor, legs swinging, sensing the seriousness without fully grasping it. Tessa wore a simple navy blouse, face bare, eyes clear but trembling at the edges. Ethan nudged her pinky with his own, a tiny anchor before the judge entered. "This court has reviewed substantial new evidence," the judge began, patting a thick folder. "The petitioner's misconduct is deeply troubling." Harold's attorney tried to object, but she cut him off instantly. Harold and Marion looked hollowed out, no longer kingmakers, just people whose schemes had been dragged into daylight. Tessa stood when called. "Your Honor, I never wanted a fight," she said. "I just wanted to raise my daughter without interference. I fought because I had to. If you ask Maya what she needs, she'll say the same 3 things: stability, honesty, love." The judge turned to Ethan. "Mr. Cole?" He rose. "I'm not related to Maya by blood," he said, "but I am something real in her life. She depends on me, and she has healed me more than I've ever helped her." He paused, gathering himself. "I didn't enter this family because of law or biology," Ethan continued. "I stepped in when a little girl asked me to pretend. I stayed because nothing in my life has ever felt more real." Tessa glanced over, eyes bright, mouth trembling at the edges. The judge looked down, then up. I see no reason for further delay. Full custody remains with Miss Hart. This court recognizes Mr. Ethan Cole as a consistent, stabilizing figure in the child's life. No future petitions will be entertained without substantial, legitimate change. The gavel fell. Outside, cameras clustered. Ethan slipped an arm around Tessa's back, shielding her. Maya broke free from the counselor and sprinted forward, leaping into his arms. "You came," she whispered. "Always," he murmured. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Hart, any statement?" Tessa turned, voice steady. "Families aren't always built the usual way," she said. "Ours started with a question, a little courage, and a lot of love. That's all anybody really needs." She reached for Ethan's hand, and he took it. Later that night, in their cozy kitchen, everything finally felt earned. Under the warm overhead light, Tessa slid a small box toward Ethan. "Maya hid this in her drawer," she said. Inside was their first photo together, Maya squeezed between them, ice cream on her cheek, all three grinning. On the back, in wobbly handwriting, "To my real family." Ethan blinked hard as emotion surged. "She knew before we did," Tessa said, smiling through tears. He took her hand. "I don't want to pretend anymore." "Then don't," she replied, leaning in. In that quiet kitchen they sealed something sacred, not with documents but with choice and commitment. Spring slid into the city almost unnoticed, buds on trees, longer evenings, laughter returning to stoops. The Lenox Avenue Community Library hosted its annual Books and Brunch, an event Tessa had once organized while exhausted and afraid. Now she stood at the registration table with calm eyes and a lighter heart. Kids raced past with paper crowns and juice boxes. Across the courtyard, Ethan helped Maya sort donated books. She wore a purple shirt that read, "Readers are leaders," and a floppy sun hat she swore made her management. "She's got your spark," Ethan said when Tessa joined them. "She's got your calm," Tessa replied. Ethan chuckled. "My board would disagree." From the small stage, someone tapped the mic. Next, our favorite donor, and apparently a decent storyteller, Mr. Ethan Cole, reading with a very special helper. Maya squealed, dragging Ethan forward. "We practiced," she announced proudly. On stage, an armchair and a big picture book waited. The title gleamed, "The Day I Found My Family." Ethan read about a girl, her brave mom, and a man who relearned joy. Maya finished the last lines. "It was never pretend. It was just waiting to begin." And in their small, glowing apartment that night, under soft lamplight and shared blankets, they finally lived the story they'd fought so hard to write. Grief can freeze a heart for years, until a small hand finds yours. Ethan thought money and a penthouse could patch the hole Noah left, but one. Daddy Day at 8:15 a.m. proved love still works like medicine. Lesson 2. When the powerful play dirty, show up with truth, not rage. Tessa's quiet courage and Ethan's evidence turned a custody trap into daylight, reminding us, after 65 winters or more, that family is a choice you keep making, even when it costs, and even when strangers watch. In your own later chapters, let kindness be the headline, and let fear lose. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a one-day promise turn into something that changed your whole life? Like a grandchild's request, a neighbor's need, or a moment that reopened your heart? What would you have done if you were Ethan? Step back to stay safe, or step in to stand up to the Pierces? Share your thoughts and your own life lessons in the comments. If this story moved you, please tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter and we can keep building a community that lifts each other up.